And welcome back to the Constitutionals Podcast. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the premier podcast for the website, cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. If you're watching the video version, you did see me spit out some gum. Let me do this. Let me start the timer on this thing. Welcome back. We're doing another episode sitting in the car. Hopefully it sounds somewhat decent. I know for a fact people will not be walking near me because I am indeed at work. Don't worry. I'm here with plenty of time to start. So let's get right to it. I went to the Super Bowl. I had a really good time. The Super Bowl this year was 53, I think. 53 or 54, one of those numbers. And it was, of course, the Patriots in there. And then the LA Rams, newly relocated LA Rams, did a wonderful job. A lot of Boston transplants came down here for some reason. Don't know why, but we had a good time. I did go with a companion. It was actually her that invited me. It was great. I took a lot of pictures, a lot of videos. I can't wait to turn those into some type of montage and put it on my Instagram account. So be on the lookout for that. It was really fun. I got a couple of towels, those Rabble towels. Was that what they call them? Rabble towels? They shake them around. And one for LA, one for Boston. I don't think anybody ever refers to the Patriots as Boston. No one says, hey, the Boston team. Unless you're talking about the Red Sox. Then people do that. So that's it. I went to the Super Bowl. It was fun time. Long day affair, just went out there from 2 to 11, I think. Got home at 11:30, something like that. So there we go. All right, let's move on in. Amber Ruffin. This happened very late last week. Amber Ruffin, she's a writer for Late Night with Seth Meyers. She's getting her own TV show pilot. I almost didn't say pilot. NBC ordered a comedy pilot presentation from Late Night writer Amber Ruffin. This is from Variety, written by Elaine Lowe. Village Gazette, a comedy from Amber Ruffin, is going to go to pilot. Ruffin will star in, write, and executive produce the single-camera comedy. She plays the fluff, peace-loving editor of the Benson Village Gazette, covering her idyllic hometown. But, quote, when the newspaper owners hire a reporter who's looking to uncover a juicy story in Benson, he threatens to unravel the happy denial Amber has been living in. So there we go. Shelley Gossman is going to write as well and executive produce. Seth Meyers, of course, and Mike Shoemaker, of course. Mike Shoemaker is also a producer for Late Night, so they're both going to produce EP through their Seth Maker Shoemeyers Productions. And Lorne Michaels, of course, because this is an NBC joint and she has some ties to SNL, will be, and Andrew Singer will also executive produce via Broadway Video. Universal Television is the studio behind the comedy. I look forward to this. She's great. She's very funny. Amber, she has her Amber Says What segments on Late Night. She appears in with another woman, another comedy writer, jokes Seth can't tell. So, given that I barely watch Late Night anymore, except for Conan, and I mean Late Night the genre, not Late Night the show, but given that I barely watch Late Night anymore, except for Conan, it's something. If this can stand out, if the segments that they break out online can stand out in someone's mind like me, also I'm tangentially involved, and we're watching this stuff, then who knows what it's good that she's out in the spotlight is what I'm trying to say. Next up, Simpsons has been renewed for seasons 31 and 32 by Fox. This is from Deadline, Nelly Andriva. I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago that The Simpsons is worth more off the air than on the air for Fox and Disney, but Fox has so far they're not going to give up on that show. Same thing for Family Guy. Family Guy's coming back for 2 more years, I believe. And then I know Bob's Burgers coming back for at least 1. Also, they wouldn't cancel that show because all of these shows are so lucrative for them. Fox is basically just going to double down on all of their Sunday cartoon shows. Because what else do they have? They got nothing. They have no other cartoon show. Seth Meyers isn't going to make another cartoon show for them. Bordertown was the last one. While Fox Broadcasting Company is said to have been losing money on The Simpsons as shows get more expensive with age, it is a legacy series for the network, and I hear, this is from Nelly, there has been a slight license fee reduction for the animated show, which is a huge profit generator for 20th TV. The cast of The Simpsons has been signed on for 2 additional seasons. Remember a couple of seasons ago who was it? Oh God, I can't remember him now. Oh no, I can't remember his name. This is so embarrassing. Okay. I'm sorry. This is so embarrassing. Harry Shearer. Harry Shearer. Nothing like dead air on a podcast, but I'm searching for something. Harry Shearer said he didn't want to come back to The Simpsons. It was taking too much time, and it was rumored that Al Jean and the rest of the Simpsons crew were looking for somebody. We're looking for people to do, not looking for people, but looking for replacements, potential replacements for Harry Shearer. But now I guess there's just no issue. Those people keep getting paid. It's insane. It's insane. It's good. This is great. I love The Simpsons, so I would love for it to continue to go on forever. Everybody has their thing. Everybody's got the little Marvel movies and their little Star Wars or whatever. I'd like to see The Simpsons continue to go on for as long as possible. That would take the episode count to 713, I believe, which is still the longest running scripted television series in the world. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Moving on. Nothing else to talk about in that one. Let's see. Oh, so this is an article from Cynthia Littleton at Variety. This is inside Disney's daring dive into the streaming world. I don't think I read through this all the way, but what I gathered from it is she's just talking about how Disney steps into becoming the next streaming service for everybody to Disney Plus, becoming the next streaming service for everybody to enjoy. We still don't have pricing on that, and they're getting if the Fox acquisition is supposed to close by March, and I can only assume that Disney Plus will be up before the Avengers movie comes out, the next one, then they need to really start releasing some information on this. But given, ESPN Plus, when that launched, it really didn't have that much information. We just knew they just kept saying, we're going to do this. We're going to do this for ESPN. Don't worry, guys. It's going to be great. And then eventually we got the name ESPN Plus. And then eventually, like a week before it came out, they said, okay, it's going to be $5. You get to watch all this original stuff. You get to watch live ESPN stuff, and you're going to love it. And you said you wanted sports on streaming. This is it. So check out this article. I'll link it in the show notes as always. But this is details about the direct-to-consumer operations of Disney have yet to be discussed. Oh, apparently, nope. According to this article, we're supposed to get it from the fiscal first quarter earnings report that came out on February 5th. It's now February 7th, the day this episode comes out. We don't know. Disney's had a unit recorded loss for the first 9 months of 2018 of $738 million, and operating income on revenue of $3.4 billion, most of which came from Disney's internal channels. Anyway, it's from what I read before. I didn't read all of it. It's a decent article, and I don't want to talk about something I don't know. And finally, before we go to break, I want to talk about this. This is an article I read yesterday. It's called The Rise of the Robot Reporter via the New York Times, written by Jacqueline Peiser. Now, it's basically an article that talks about how Bloomberg, Washington Post, and somebody else, Wall Street Journal, they're all using these AI robots to write financial reports. Bloomberg, they get if you frequent that website, and I know you don't. Somebody like me does. Somebody who's way deeper into that than me. But if you frequent that website, you know that they are basically just stocks and Dow and Dow Jones and all the fiscal reports and financial reports and and some news as well. But when I look at it, it's mostly numbers. And what they have is what we learned in this article is roughly a third, this is not from the article, of the content published by Bloomberg News uses some form of automated technology. The system used by the company, Cyborg, is able to assist reporters in churning out thousands of articles on company earning reports in each quarter. So I was just talking about how Disney and their first fiscal report we're talking about, what they're supposed to do for Disney Plus. For last year in 2018, they talked about how much money they lost in the first quarter of 2018, which is that $738 million and the operating of under the net of $3.4 billion, something like that. So what this robot does is these companies will send these fiscal reports out, or they'll release these fiscal reports, and then this robot, this AI, will get these numbers and then basically make an article out of it, make a digestible article out of it. Now, obviously, not everybody's going to be able to read this article because it's nothing interesting. It's going to be very boring, but that's why these AI are doing it instead of the people doing it. Apparently, New York Times doesn't do this, but it's Washington Post, Bloomberg, and everybody else. Well, a lot of other people. Associated Press does it for minor league baseball, high school football for the WAPO, and earthquakes for the Los Angeles Times. So everybody essentially has their hands in this, with the exception of there's an airplane passing by. I can see it. It is so close to the ground. Is there an airport over here? Any Hoosers. Journalism, this is very important. I brought this up because I thought this was very strange. Journalism executives say it is not a threat to human employees. Rather, the idea is to allow journalists to spend more time on substantive work. I think last week, and pretty much every day of my life, no, I'm just kidding, I don't do this, but I was just talking smack about the what's it called? The BuzzFeed doing their thing, with their lists and whatnot, and they have that, but then they also periodically, which I don't understand how this happens. They sometimes have these great, and I never read them, but I hear about them. They're these great, giant 8,000 word articles. I don't want to say essays, articles that will break news and all that stuff. And I think that's great. That's good that they can do this investigative reporting. But this is, it's not really, BuzzFeed. Something you'll see like top 10 ways to lick your husband's nipples. And then he said as he rubs the stock of the car, of the steering wheel. But then they have these big articles, talking about how detailing three women's relationship with the president, something like that. So I think, but that's generally the stuff, or the stuff that's in New York Times Magazine, or the big articles that are in the Wall Street Journal. All the things that are, God, I was going to say internet breaking, but I would drive my car into the side of a wall if I said that and meant anything by it. But that's what people. I guess that's really what these companies want. Even though everyone, BuzzFeed, New York Times, even though they're closing up shop, I should finish off that idea. Although there was a report yesterday I read that New York Times is doing well in terms of money. The AP was an early adopter when it struck a deal in 2014 with Automated Insights, a technology company specializing in language generation software that produces billions of machine-generated stories a year. In addition to leaning on the software to generate minor league and college game stories, the AP, like Bloomberg, has used it to beef up its coverage of company earnings reports. Since joining forces with Automated Insights, and this is what I thought was really interesting, so pay attention to this, the AP has gone from producing 300 articles on earnings reports per quarter to 3,700. That is a 3,400 step up. That's crazy. And I guarantee not even all of those are getting clicks or looked at. The Post has an in-house robot reporter, and notice how I've named four, at least 3 to 4 ones of these different AI robots companions called Heliograph, which demonstrated its usefulness with its coverage of the 2016 Summer Olympic Games and the 2016 elections. Last year, thanks to Heliograph, the Post won in the category of excellence in use of bots at the annual Global Biggies Awards, which recognize accomplishments in the use of big data and artificial intelligence. As if to make journalists jittery, the Biggie ceremony took place at Columbia University's Pulitzer. I don't know why I read that out loud. But yes, so eventually these things are going to do something a little bit less rote and a little bit more substantive. But as for now, and they can say that they're not going to, that journalists don't have to worry about this. But when it comes to something that journalists don't want to do, like I know when I was at XIA, when I was at NBC, I had to write cold cases sometimes, which was just a BS thing to get me to do something when I when I really didn't want to. Or cold cases. There's these so you can go fiscal reports, cold cases, just regular news stories. But they're not going to be able to capture, for some of these bigger publications. Well, obviously they're going to be the only ones that can afford them, but they're not going to be able to capture how a real reporter would write. Even if you're not allowed to editorialize, you're still gonna put just a little bit of yourself in there. If you're good, I see it all the time. He repeated twice. He repeated twice. So there's that. Hey, listen. I'm going to go to break. Then when I come back, we're going to talk about Spotify. So give me a second. We're going to go to break and we're right back. And we're back. Welcome back to the Constitutionals Podcast. I genuinely hope I leave that break in. And I don't edit it out. Oh my gosh. It was just me sitting there staring at the waveforms, making sure there's enough room so that I can go, okay, that's where the break is. I'm going to cut that part out. I want to talk about Spotify really quick. Just really quick. Spotify is the leading music service. The leading music streaming service. Okay. Pretty much everybody uses them except for the people who don't, who use Apple Music or Google Play Music, or in some cases, it's not Napster, it's not Rhapsody, TuneIn Radio. There's a bunch of other things. I just spit and it just went that way. All right. But it's here we are. They have made an insane purchase. They made a purchase of Gimlet Studios. Gimlet Studios is a podcast studio. I don't think I know that, but they apparently I think were one of the first ones, right? Is that not the one with that does Alex Inc? Remember the TV show Alex Inc? Okay, that came from a podcast. I think it was called The Startup or something like that. But Alex Inc starring Zach Braff. It was on television 2 years ago, I believe. It was canceled mid-season. This is from Engadget, written by Mariella Moon. What a beautiful name. Spotify. I said her name is beautiful. Spotify is reportedly in talks for a $200 million podcast purchase. The music streaming company is in the process of acquiring podcast giant Gimlet, according to sources. According to Recode and the Wall Street Journal, the music streaming company is currently in talks to acquire podcasting giant Gimlet Media for over $200 million. If Spotify manages to finalize the acquisition, which they did, I think yesterday, at the time of this recording, it will be the first time it has purchased another company. Recode says the negotiation is still in advanced stages, but is not a done deal yet. And it happened. Gimlet was valued at $70 million after raising money in 2017. So they could have done one of two things: was either sell themselves or go public. I don't think any podcast company's gone public, and Spotify is public now, so that's good. So there we go. Let's see. So this is a second article from The Verge. I wasn't sure. I have two more. I wasn't sure which one I was going to go to. Spotify, the leading music streaming app, is finally profitable, but it's not going to last for a long time. This is from Sean Hollister at The Verge. Now, I've mentioned this before. Every big media company. Not every big media company. A lot of recent big media companies that are public are losing a lot of money. Snapchat, I believe, has lost a lot of money. Netflix is losing a lot of money. I would say Hulu, but I doubt that. And now in Spotify, of course, any one of these things is losing a lot of money. But that doesn't matter as long as you can raise money or you have a line of credit. See MoviePass, Helios Matheson, which did not have any of that stuff, which they kept getting lines of credit, but then they just lost everything. So they have 2 new acquisitions, which is Gimlet and then, other stuff. But after 13 years and 96 million paid subscribers, Spotify is finally making money. They were losing money hand over fist a couple of years ago, and now they're finally making some money. Now, this is all going to be in a quid form, but Sean does provide different numbers. This is from Spotify's financial announcement yesterday morning. For the first time in company history, operating income, net income, and free cash flow were all positive. First time in history. The company made an operating profit of about 94 million quid, or about $107 million. Now, Sean says it's a good sign for the entire industry, not just Spotify, because Spotify is arguably is leading the industry today. Yeah, of course. Okay. So Spotify's got all that money, and now they have Gimlet, and now they have another. What else do they have? Who else did they buy? Gimlet Media, studio behind podcasts such as Crime Town, Reply All, and Startup. I was right. And Anchor, they bought Anchor. Oh, that is so cool. Anchor is an app that is an easy way for you to make podcasts. What you do is you download the app. You can your friends download the app. You can call them up in quotes, and then it links all of you together, or you can just use your phone, whatever. And then you press a button, and then you record an episode, and you can put in not sound bites. You can put in soundboards and stuff like that, noises. It's not an effective way to podcast. Says the guy sitting in his car with a microphone and his laptop and his makeshift phone timer next to him and these crappy Apple earbuds. But it's great. Anchor's cool for if you don't have the technology. So that's cool. Yeah. So they bought Gimlet Media, which I knew did Startup, and Anchor. But now it doesn't want to. This is from the New York Times, their DealBook business section, business section. Spotify, it's not just for music anymore. Written by Ben Cesario and Michael J. De La Merced. Maybe the C is pronounced like that. Anyway. With the acquisition, Spotify they argue, their thesis is Spotify is not just the one-stop shop for music anymore. It's going to be the one place for all audio, or it's trying to be the one place for all audio. With the acquisition, Spotify becomes the latest player to invest in a medium once considered a low-stakes sandbox in the larger media environment. Now that podcasts have become part of the listening routine for millions of people, major companies have recognized them as an important but still relatively cheap source of content. Now, I also want to add into this that there is a Ron Burgundy podcast. Everybody's getting the podcasting. Okay, before it was just Earwolf and Nerdist and like a handful of other podcasts like WTF, Guy and Gal. I think that's what it's called. Keith and the Girl. I think that's what it's called. That's what it's called, not Guy and Gal. That sounds like a porn title. Guy and Gal, but like a really like baseline. I'll stop talking. Never Not Funny, of course. And then, like I said, Earwolf Nerdist. But then it just exploded, especially when it came to Serial. Everybody, speaking of Serial, there's HBO produced a rebuttal documentary series of Serial, but now it's been like, what, 5 years since Serial came out? Or 6? A rebuttal series? Who needs that? This Adnan kid they say this is why Adnan. So Serial was supposed to be why Adnan's innocent. And then this HBO documentary is why he's not. Who needs this? Okay. Anyway. This is so stupid. But then of course Serial, and then, shows like Serial and S-Town, they really, and in some cases Richard Simmons is missing or whatever the heck that was called, but that was a garbage podcast. They're all garbage podcasts, all these murder mystery documentary podcasts, but now everybody has one. Conan, Ron Burgundy, which is Will Ferrell, and that Ron Burgundy podcast, I listened to the trailer and the first episode came out today, I believe, and it is 48. Like they said season 1, which I can only assume they're doing more of these, but it's a long episode, 48 minutes. That's a length episode. Another plane is flying by. Where in the world are they planes coming from? Where in the world are they planes coming from? Coming to you soon. But since and podcasts are so cheap to make, you can get all these sponsors, and bada boom, bada bing, you're making a couple hundred, maybe a couple $1,000 from this thing you put out all you gotta do is make it sound good. You're still gonna get paid. In September, the radio giant iHeartMedia bought Stuff Media, another influential producer, and recently Hollywood has begun buying up rights to popular podcasts. Homecoming on Amazon, the half-hour drama series from Sam Esmail starring Julia Roberts, that is based on a podcast from Gimlet. And I mean, it's crazy. This is from Owen Grover, the chief executive of Pocket Cast, the app that I use, that I paid $15 for 3 different apps to access it, and it is great. All right, if you have iOS, you can buy it there. You have Android, buy it there. If you just want to listen to it on the web, buy it there. But you get access to all your stuff if you just pay a one-time fee. It's amazing. I love it. He says, quote, he doesn't think Spotify woke up one day and realized that audio storytelling has some incredible emotional place in the life of their brand. Strategically, if they can get their users to listen to podcasts in place of music, it improves their margins. Mostly because the longer that people are on the app, the more money they make, essentially. So you listen, what 5 songs is going to get the artists a tenth of a cent, and listening to 5 songs is going to get there a tenth of a cent. But a podcast, a person can listen to it, listen to 48 minutes, hear an ad, buy something based on the ad from Spotify, boom, and it just gives everybody money. Everybody involved gets more money. Gimlet shows will expand Spotify's podcasting slate, which includes thousands of shows widely available on other platforms. Again, podcasting, having a podcast, I don't think I mentioned this before, but having a podcast be exclusive to a player, that's going to come at some point, but it's not going to be good. I can tell you that much. It's not going to be good for the audience and for the people. Gimlet, so they're going to have as well, which includes thousands of shows widely available on other platforms, as well as high-profile exclusive productions from the comedian Amy Schumer, the journalist Jamil Hill, and the rapper Joe Budden, among others. Alex, the guy that the show is based on, Alex and Bloomberg, they are very happy. They founded Gimlet in 2014. Yeah, so that's when, podcasting became, that was like the start. That was the slope. And yeah, these comedy podcasts that I've been listening to for, 10 years in some cases, for a long time in some cases. Yeah, they did start before, but it's once it hits the mainstream, that's when you got to claim. By some estimates, more than 600,000 podcasts are available through Apple, a number that does not include shows that are exclusive to others like Spotify. Again, you have an exclusive show on Spotify, it's just not worth it. I'm not going to use the app. I'm not going to open that app just to listen to a podcast. No, I got Pocket Cast on me. The podcast industry, according to a study by the Interactive Advertising Bureau and PwC, the podcast industry as a whole generated $314 million in 2017, though that survey also predicts that by 2020, the number will more than double to $659 million. If you just heard, my car engine did click on. It's very hot in the middle of February. It's very hot here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I have been sitting in the car with the air on, and even though I have a hybrid, the engine generator does kick on periodically. I got to end this at some point so I can go to work. I'm 10 minutes late, apparently. But yeah, while in 2018 the company lost 78 million quid, about $89 million, it had a net income of $502 million in its fourth quarter. Spotify's gross profit margin also grew in that quarter to 26.7% from 25.3% in the previous 3 months. Mr. Eck, the company's chief executive, predicted that over time, about 20% of all Spotify listening would involve something other than music. And that's where they start doing videos. I think they do videos currently now. Then, they're doing podcasts. They're going to do all types of things in order for you to stay on the app longer, in order for you to choose their app over Apple Music, to choose their app over YouTube, choose their app over Google Play Music, which is going to become YouTube Music at some point this year, I believe. So there we go. But it's cool. It's cool to see podcasting get recognized like this. It's not going to be cool when it gets blown out of proportion like television. We're already starting to see that, like with Stitcher Premium. You pay $5 a month. I'm so happy to see my favorite comedy hosts, comedy podcast hosts, and journalist hosts, and all these other hosts get paid. But when we have things like Patreon, when we have shows hidden behind Patreon walls, or when we have exclusive shows that are, $5 a month on Stitcher Premium, it gets to add up. And of course, as for streaming services, you don't need to have all of that. But when you have, three of the major competitors like Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon, then for such, low prices, you kind of want that. But then when other shows are hidden behind paywalls and like when Nickelodeon shows, I think all of the old Nicktoons are on Verve. And I would love to watch, one episode of Rocket Power. I can even keep a straight face. I love to. I guarantee if I sat down to watch Rugrats, Cat Dog, Rocket Power, Courage the Cowardly Dog, any of these shows from old Disney and Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, a lot of them probably wouldn't stand the test of time, especially Rugrats, because that show was ugly. But Rocket Power, I guarantee would not. Mostly because I saw a tweet yesterday that was where Black Twitter went in on Rocket Power and how it's probably not that good anymore. Any Hoosers. But it's gonna be interesting to see this thing change. Television, they used to not have a lot of commercials, and then as I've mentioned on this week's News Time, the Super Bowl last year had 102 minutes of something like that, like 102 minutes of commercials, whereas the Super Bowl from 2008, so 10 years ago, only had 86 minutes of commercials. And even when I was at the Super Bowl this past Sunday in 2019, there was a lot of stoppage in time, even though it was moving briskly. And also it was a very slow game. So even being there, but it was great and I loved it, and it was awesome. So thank you so much for listening to the show. This is episode 95. We got 5 more until 100, and I gotta pray I will be in the studio, and by the studio I mean my room, so I can record that. I gotta go to work. So listen, if you like what you heard here, and why don't you head on over to the website, cpluscomedy.com, where there's interviews, where this podcast lives, where another podcast, The Application, lives. That show is defunct now, though. You can also check out youtube.com/cpluscomedy to see a video version of this show. You can see the backlog there. I believe it only goes back to episode 60-something for the video version. Or just laugh like that. You can also see the premiere show for C Plus Comedy, which is News Time, which is a weekly news show where I grab one story and I talk about it. This week's episode was about the Super Bowl advertising. It came out late, but man, oh man, I'm so proud of the cold open for that one. It's a Super Bowl shuffle theme where I did the Super Bowl shuffle actually at the Super Bowl. So it was great. It was awesome. Definitely check it out. And you can follow us on Instagram at C Plus Comedy. Follow me on Instagram at Chad Black White. Follow us on Twitter at C Plus Comedy. Follow me on Twitter at Chad Black White. Like us on Facebook. Thank you for listening. I will see you next week, hopefully, if I don't die. Okay, bye.